Hey, what's up, WAGME fam? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have character reveal number 3 out of 12. And that character today is Supreme Commander Sartosis. Now, every game I've ever played, there's always been at least one character where I was just like, I don't really need him on my team. And I hate to admit it, but for me, in WAGME defense, it was always Supreme Commander Sartosis. And I don't know why, because I love green and the yellow. My favorite, character out of any game I've ever played is Link. So green isn't the issue. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and he pretty much looks like a bio version of Groot with a badass sword. But I don't know, there's just something about Sartosis. He never really felt like his character really exemplified the importance of his position in the Grey Alliance. I mean, his backstory is pretty badass. Supreme Commander Sartosis leads the Grey Alliance ground units. And if you guys remember from the cinematic trailer, he's right there in the front because he's leading the ground units. I mean, at least he got camera time. I don't think Apollyon got any camera time in the cinematic trailer. But he's actually one of the favorite units that people play when they're picking alien teams when playing the beta. So you don't see Commander Sartosis pop out too much. And that made me sad. I was like, you know what? We really need to make sure that when people see Commander Sartosis, they gravitate toward him. And of course, here comes GadgetBot to make that happen. But a little more at his backstory right here. He comes from the malevolent star system where the fallen power reside. In the ancient war between the powers and the virtues, his race, the Enogols, sided with the powers who ultimately lost the war. And as punishment, the virtues imprisoned the royals of the Enogols of the Galena. Probably pronouncing all this wrong, Lewis. Sorry, you should have coached me on that. But anyway, Sartosis escaped only after a treacherous battle where he defeated 2 of the great powers using his NiFe armor and his elemental blade powered by the core of the star. Right? So it's core of the star Galena. So obviously his blade is super important, and we felt like, okay, the character needs a complete redesign. He needs to look 100% original, and his blade needs to be like, it needs to be very obvious that that's a part of him, and it's powerful, right? And so we went to GadgetBot, right? Sketches round 1, and this is what they sent to us. Here's the original up top, and if we scroll down, automatically they homed in on the blade. You guys can see they made it part of his arm. Now, we haven't truly decided. We can still go either way with this, whether it's part of his arm or his arm just goes into the sheath of the blade, but he can still put it away if he wants to. Right here, though, it's connected to his shoulder with a tube, so right? So it looks like it's more a part of his body, but it can go either way still. But, that was step 1. And when they came back at us with the first sketch kind of using those ideas, what we got was something that was incredibly different from what you guys have already seen at the beginning of this video. And by the way, make sure you subscribe and you click that like button if you're enjoying this content and you want to see more. But over here on the left, he had some kind of like weird lizard head, which it kind of resembled what he already had. Like he kind of has like this weird lizard-like head going on, right? Like this lizardy Groot head going on. But they went full-blown lizard here. To me, it just kind of looked like the suit was a mech suit, and they just kind of put like an eel in there where his head's supposed to be, right? Kind of like that the Megamind sidekick where the fish is the head. He's on top of a mechanical body. You guys might know what I'm talking about. It kind of reminded me of that. And then on the right here, more of a lizardous type body with the tail. Again, the sword is a part of his arm here. And he has more of like a humanoid head. But we just completely didn't like either one of these. So he said, okay, let's just scrap those and go to something else because it's not working for us. And so A is a continuation of like the lizardish, like the humanoid lizard, and then B was something totally different. And I don't know, to me, A just felt more demon-esque versus, I guess, lizard. It just kind of felt like it was going down a path we've seen 100 times in a lot of games with like this demon-esque type presence, lizard body, lizard tail. And again, the sword, I actually think the sword here looks really badass. And that's obviously strapped to his arm. It's not his actual hand. Then over here on the right, this was more or less just like a skeleton outline of what the character could look like. And over here, you can see how the sword, he is actually holding it with his hand. And there was a lot of elements here that we thought we could kind of push the limit on and bring that to life. So we actually decided to go with B, and a lot of notes that came in right away were he just needed to be beefed up, right? And so when they came back with round 2, there was clearly a lot more detail added, and he was beefed up quite a bit. So the beefiness of his torso, his arms, and his legs, but his feet still looked way too small, right? And some other things they added here were the hair, kind of like dreadlocks, which I thought was super badass. It's kind of like reminds me of that character from Hellboy. I'll try to find a photo of it to remind myself. But I liked the dreadlocks here. I thought it looked pretty cool. And then this idea for the shield to actually be like an energy that projects out of his hand, I thought was really cool, because even though there's different variants of the shields, there's A and there's B, obviously B is what's there right now, that just gives us so much more to play with in the future. We can make these shields look any way we want. Obviously, for the character's debut, we had to pick one or the other, but we can essentially make that shield look and do whatever we want it to do, and the sword started to become more of his hand at this point as well. So we said, okay, we like the direction this is going. Let's beef up the feet a bit more, beef up the legs, beef up the torso, and see where we can go from there. And that's exactly what GadgetBot did. So a little more detail was added in round 3. And if you look at his head, we actually decided to give him more eyes. And so these green marks right here are going to be eyes that are going to have pupils in them. You'll see here in a minute. So we did that. The sword was beefed out a bit more. Feet still a little too small. And his shoulders they didn't look right. They just looked way too big for the size of his torso. And so as we moved on into the next rendition, the shoulders were tightened up a little bit, which looked really good. The feet got a massive change. I mean, look at his feet and his shins and his calves, just completely beefed up. Now, I mean, he's the leader of the commander, the supreme commander of the ground troops. So he needs to be able to be at the front line of those ground troops, have this badass shield, have this badass sword, and he needs to be able to plant those feet in the ground and defend himself and push that line forward. And so all of that was taken into consideration with these character changes. Like, he's just not one of those commanders who sits back on the sidelines and watches his army go forward. I mean, he's at the front. Even in the cinematic trailer, he's at the front of the ground troops saying, "Let's go, follow me." And now we have this character here that looks quite stout. He looks like he has a lot of muscle. Those feet, those claws can dig into the ground, help him run really fast, help him stand his ground. And then again, right, the blade is just looking incredibly badass. That's his most prominent feature. That's what helped him escape from captivity. And if we go here and punch in more, you can see the hair is turned more into dreadlocks, which I thought was awesome. Very Predator-like, right? And then the eyes were punched in a little more too. You can see the irises coming through here, right? And then the shield, the curvature of the shield just looks so badass. So it was kind of like a combination between A and B, actually. We liked the pointiness of A, and then we liked the thickness of B, and so that was all kind of thrown together. And then as we moved into actually the same round for round 4, they gave us a couple different color options as well. And so we have a gray here, we have a green, we have a blue, right? But ultimately, we chose to go with this bluish color because it made the green pop more. But it doesn't mean in the future that we can't do this color here, right? This can be a skin. In fact, one of the things that we said to the GadgetBot team was, hey, hold on to that sketch. I mean, obviously, we'll have it too, but that could be a color option or a skin change in a future live op events. And so some other key things that were done here, let me just go to the next photo. You can see that the feet were made to look like these feet can handle whatever we throw at him in terms of ground force. He can dig in and hold his own against pretty much anything. And as we look at the sword, to me, it still looks like if we wanted to, again, this is all Lewis, guys. Lewis is the creative mind behind all of this. to me, it looks like we could still make it so that his hand can come out of here. But I don't know. It might be cooler if that was just his hand all the time, and then maybe the blade retracts, right? So it's easier for him to maneuver around when he's not fighting. I don't know. Why don't you guys post down in the comment section below? Do you want him to have a hand? Do we want to give poor Sartosis a second hand? Or do we want him to have a blade hand? Or maybe in the future he can control the energy of the blade and turn it into fingers. Who knows? We could do anything we want, but I'd like to hear what your guys' opinion is. I just love this projection right here coming out of his hand to make the shield. I mean, this just looks so cool. And you see the green veins going through him, right? Everything's being powered by that star, like the Galena star, right? You can see all of that in this character. And then as we move into the final rendition, obviously, all the detail was added here. We also have the alien symbol on his chest. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that either. And then the dreadlocks were made more to match his face here, kind of making it look very squid-like. He almost looks like Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, which I thought was cool. Again, the eyes look absolutely incredible. And if I scroll over here to the left, I mean, just the pointiness of his shoulder pads looks so sharp. I love it. And as we scroll down, everything else is pretty much the same aside from his groin piece right here. There was a lot of detail added that I thought was cool. It makes it look very metally on top, right? And you can see that there's depth to it here with the gray. And then his leg armor, I mean, and his feet, everything just looks so sharp on this guy. Pun intended, because everything does look sharp as well. But Sartosis just went from being faded on to being one of the most coolest characters out of all the aliens, in my opinion. And that's why, baby, that's why we're all gonna make it. So if you enjoyed today's video, another character reveal is coming tomorrow, and you're not gonna wanna miss that one, so make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you then.